You know how Forrest Gump says life is like a box of chocolates? What if it's more like a labyrinth? Journey with me through the labyrinth of life today. Hello and welcome to Temple of Akasha, the home of embodied spirituality with me, Natasha. Today I'm sharing 3 life lessons I learned attempting to walk a rather large labyrinth not so far from my home. So I had an amazing morning. I took myself to Willen Lake, which is one of my favourite places in Milton Keynes. I hired a bike. I just had a great morning. And as I was cycling around the lake, I stopped at the labyrinth. For those of you that have visited Milton Keynes or Willen Lake, you might be familiar that there's this really large maze labyrinth there. And I've been past it like dozens of times, and I don't think I've ever taken the time to walk it, let alone actually engage in it as a kind of mindful spiritual practice, dare I say. And so I decided to park up my bike and just engage with the energy of this labyrinth. And what emerged for me was really powerful. So the first lesson arose very quickly. And if we could think of this external reality as a mirror for our subconscious, it shows very clearly for me today where I may still be wrapped up in or engaging in illusion, fallacy, mental chatter, fear, etc. It was a very powerful mirror for me. So the first lesson I learned, even just choosing to engage in the labyrinth, was how once we have our sights set on a goal, dream, desire, something that we want to manifest, actualize, achieve, move towards, it's so easy to want to take shortcuts. So once I'd clocked this labyrinth and I saw this beautiful tree in the middle of the labyrinth, there was this part of my mind that was like, just cut across all of the lines and the different routes and just get straight to the tree. And it's such a powerful reflection and mirror of how much when we are attached to an outcome or we have a certain vision, goal, dream in mind, it can be really easy to just want to get there now. And we do not always appreciate the fact that there is a journey to be had and that journey is just as valid, if not more so, than the actualization of what it is that we're moving towards. And I just found it really interesting how just choosing to say like, oh, I want to engage in this labyrinth, my mind immediately went to just walk across all of the lines, bypass all of the hard work and just get straight to the tree. It's like, it just completely defeats the object. But when we're hungry for something, or when we sense that there's something good coming, or when we have that kind of soul hunger for something, it's natural for the mind and the ego to want to attach to that kind of future vision, that forecasted experience, and lose touch with the present moment. And so the first lesson was really just in realizing that it's okay for us to have goals, dreams and desires, things that we want to move towards, because that's kind of why we're here in form. We're co-creating with spirit to experience this life. But it's also equally as important not to bypass the journey in getting to what we want or what we want to experience. And so once I'd made the decision that I was going to walk the labyrinth, after I'd moved beyond that mind thing of like, oh, just cut through everything and just walk to the tree and go and hug the tree. Once I decided I was going to walk the labyrinth, I decided I was going to walk it really mindfully. And so I found the actual entrance, because it's a really large maze and I couldn't find where it started. And again, my mind was like, just cut across the whole thing and, either leave if you can't find it. Again, like all this mental chatter. And I was just like, no, I'm going to find the actual start point and I'm going to start it properly. So once I found the start point, I decided to mindfully walk the path. And I said to myself that I would walk this path with presence and just allowing myself to enjoy the journey. And that was very beautiful, and it was a very mindful experience until lesson number 2 cropped up for me. And lesson number 2 was that once we start moving on our path towards our chosen goal and we start beginning the process of actualizing our dreams, once we begin the process of actively taking action towards that which we want, it's really, really tempting for the mind to want to strategize about how we're going to get there. So what I mean by that is the mind will often think that it knows the best way to get what we want, as opposed to us leaning back and listening to our intuitive guidance and allowing us to be guided by and informed by the unified field, the soul self, source, right? So it's so easy to think we already know the best way there, but we have to remember that the mind is operating from past programming, so it doesn't know how to create from a place of novelty. And this showed up for me really strongly when I started to approach points in the labyrinth where there were like crossroad sections or areas where I could take multiple routes. Initially, I was very present with that experience and I was just following my guidance. When I got a nudge to go right, I went right. When I got that little kind of pull to go left, I went left. But after a while, my mind began to sneak in and I saw myself like scanning up and looking for the route, like where does that go? If I was to take that route, would it take me to the center where I want to go? Okay, no, maybe I'll check and go through that way. And it was interesting to just note how there was this subtle background fear that I might take the wrong route, that I might make a mistake, that I might get it wrong, and therefore move further away from my goal of reaching the center of the labyrinth. And I thought, what an interesting reflection for life, right? That sometimes we live in such fear and scarcity, such lack of trust, and I've been there, I'm still there, in and out many times in my experience, where we lose faith in the wider knowing that we are supported by spirit. The little small self, doesn't need to know everything. We can't possibly know everything, and that it's okay to just allow ourselves to be guided step by step. And it's so easy to fall into the fear that we might take a wrong turn and it's going to have catastrophic results. And what I found so interesting about this labyrinth was there were no dead ends. This labyrinth did not have any dead ends. There were only points that wound back on themselves and took you back to where you started so you could reroute. And I thought that that was so symbolic, that there are actually no dead ends. The ego fears failure, the ego fears getting it wrong, the ego fears from that almost kind of survival scarcity programming, you know, if I take a wrong path, a wrong route, if I make the wrong decision, it's going to be life or death. That's the kind of programming that's really kind of running and driving this behavior and this kind of mental experience. And actually, this labyrinth mirrored back to me that that's a fallacy. All routes lead us home. Some are more direct than others. Some take a little longer than others, because we let the ego mind strategize and get in the way of the guidance that is innately and naturally leading us to where we want to go, where the soul wants to go. It's actually the interference of the ego mind that does tend to make our journey a little bit more tumultuous or a little bit more suffering filled than it needs to be. And so it was really beautiful once I realized that I'd lapped and I'd gone back on myself and I'd ended up at the same point that I was in 5 minutes ago. It was just interesting to observe, like, oh, there are no dead ends here. I can just make a different choice now. And that's what this life experience is about. It's about helping us to use our external experience, our human experience, to move through life and to start gauging what feels right for us within ourselves, what feels like truth within ourselves, to use life experience as a gauge for truth, for love, for authenticity, for alignment. And sometimes we're going to walk a path that doesn't feel so in alignment. And then we will just have the opportunity to be rerouted back onto a path that feels more aligned. I thought that was pretty beautiful. And the third lesson that I want to share from my labyrinth experience today is that it's not always about finishing or winning or actualizing the goal or completing the particular journey that we'd set on. It seems, from my own experience of life, and indeed from this labyrinth today, that it is actually more about just trying, just choosing to engage in this experience of life. It's not necessarily about how much we can produce or manifest or create at a tangible kind of level of completion. It's more just how much are we willing to devote ourselves to whatever it is we're doing and whatever it is that we've chosen to move towards. How much can we choose to just be in devotion to that instead of focusing on the end goal? And sometimes in life, that's going to mean that we don't always get what we want, so to speak. Sometimes the goal isn't actualized. Sometimes we fail, if it's starting a business, for example, or a relationship. Sometimes things don't always work out. And what I think it mirrored back for me personally in my own experience at the moment is with love, especially. Sometimes there are these kind of ego strategies that keep the heart closed because we fear that if we love with an open heart and we get hurt, it's going to be so painful that it's not worth loving at all. And actually, this is what the labyrinth showed me, that the tree in the center might be, the desired relationship or the desired dynamic or the desired experience. And can we keep our hearts open on the journey there? Can we choose to stay open to love and life without any guarantees? That's it. Can we choose to stay open to love? Can we choose to stay open to life without any guarantees? This is the nature of unconditional love. And so I didn't finish the labyrinth today. I'd been walking for quite a while and then I started to need a wee. And also my phone was dying and I didn't know how to use this rental bike that I was using. I didn't know if I needed my phone to check it back in. So after looping back several times, I made the decision to mindfully step off of the labyrinth path, and I said that I would choose to go back at another time. And what that showed me was, even though I didn't reach the goal, I did my absolute best to stay devoted to just the journey of getting there while I was on that path. And it's the same with life and love, right? It's like the ego mind, say we're starting a new relationship or we're dating or we're just open to experiencing something, the mind can be so tricky in the ways in which it wants to guarantee safety and it wants to avoid pain and attach to pleasure. And so the mind, if we allow it to, will think of all of these strategies and will form all of these different mechanisms to try and guard the heart from pain. But what happens when we move through life from that place is that we actually shrink our capacity to just be open to love, to move from love, to feel love in the present. And so, if we're looking to date someone, we might kind of keep our heart guarded because, the mind is saying, well, what if they lose interest or what if they find someone else? I don't want to feel everything I'm feeling in this moment. I don't want to be open to love in this moment in the way that I feel like I could be, because there's a chance I'll get rejected, hurt, abandoned, etc. It's easier, it's safer to just guard up a little bit, or I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, and so I'm going to withdraw half of my heart. I'm going to keep some of it back because there are no guarantees in this. And this actually reminds me of a Thomas Roosevelt quote that I want to share with you today about the importance of trying without guarantees, about the importance of just engaging with life, choosing to be here, to be fully present, to give it our all, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, even when we don't know where it will lead, even when we don't know if we're ever going to actualize the goal. A life where we try, where we choose to live with our hearts open with our souls burning is better than a life with a closed heart, where the fire of the soul is so diminished that we don't have any drive. So this quote is, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." I think that's a pretty apt place to end my reflections today. I hope this was an insightful and invaluable sharing with you. Thank you for being here with me, and I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Take good care.